Supporting a losing heroine in a romance anime might genuinely be one of the most psychologically damaging things a human being can do. It's almost like supporting your favorite sports team, but knowing full well they will never win a championship in their lifetime. But before this video proceeds, I'm going to ask you guys a very important question. Did Yotsuba, Emilia, and Chitoge really deserve their win? Don't get me wrong, I'm very comfortable with how Niseko and Quintessential Quintuplets ended. And even though I'm a Nino and Kosaki fan, I think ultimately the right choice was made for the story and for the protagonist. But there has been an ongoing debate, especially in the anime community, that the best girl in some animes never get to win. That the losing heroine is far superior than any other candidates. But what if I play devil's advocate? Can I try to convince myself and everyone else who agree with the winning heroine that the best girl actually lost? Today, I will be discussing why Nino, Rem, and Kosaki should deserve their win. Subscribe, like, support smoke like me, and fuck Jack. But before we start, I have seen friendships collapse over the great waifu wars. And even for me, when I was a kid, when I was like 11 years old, who didn't know what was going on, I didn't even know where babies come from, I didn't even know girls can, reproduce. Back in those days, I had to defend choosing Gwen over Charmcaster, May over Misty, and Pearl over Sandy Cheeks. So that's why before we start, it's important to know that by no means in this video will I be saying the winning heroine sucks or something like that. Instead, I'll try to provide evidence to why the losing heroine was actually the ideal choice. And again, I'm also playing devil's advocate, so you can't criticize me. But with that out of the way, let's start off with the first anime that got it wrong, Quintessential Quintuplets. Now, when Yotsuba won, people acted like their house just caught on fire. They could not believe that Nino and Miku both lost, and they went wild. Listen, I watched my fair share of romance anime, so I know somehow, some way, that Nino, Miku, and Ichika were both gonna lose. All of them. I just knew. I'm like, the modern day psychic. And it was long before the manga even ended. So, in reality, I really thought to myself that there were only two options. Yotsuba and Itsuki. And since most romance anime have this golden rule of the first girl rule, or the cover girl rule where the first girl always wins, I really thought Itsuki was gonna win at the end. But yet, Yotsuba won. A lot of fans claim that the choice completely came out of nowhere. But in order to prove why Nino should have won, we first need to understand why Yotsuba was chosen in the first place. And to that, there are three main reasons. First of all, Futaro chose Yotsuba because she was the first quintuplet that supported Futaro from the very beginning. She was the first person to help him connect with her sisters, she was the first person to encourage him when he was down, and she was the first person that made his life easier. Futaro even tells her that he would have probably quitted if it weren't for her support. Secondly, for the first time ever, the childhood friend won at the very end. Yotsuba was the one who Futaro met in Kyoto, who inspired him to become who he is today. And lastly, Futaro chose Yotsuba because of her as a character. While the other girls competed for his attention, Yotsuba was the person who changed him personally without any ulterior motives. When she found out first that her sisters liked him, she voluntarily suppressed her own feelings to avoid conflict among the group because she didn't think she deserved Futaro over her sisters. And that is who Yotsuba is as a character. And that is why Futaro chose her, because he felt comfortable around her. But knowing all of that, how can I play devil's advocate and try to convince y'all that Nino Nakano should have won? While Yotsuba's character arc happened retrospectively, Nino's romance happened directly in front of our very eyes. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean one is better than the other, but it just goes to show why, many people are more in love with Nino than Yotsuba, because we saw Nino grow throughout the entire series. So now it's time to build her case even more. First up, Nino's character arc. As the second eldest of the group, Nino was one of the first sisters who originally was hesitant to having Futaro enter the group, viewing him as a threat to her sister's unity. So how did Nino go from this to sending him him flying kisses at work. Well, Nino has always believed that she was the primary caretaker of the group, always believing that them sticking together is the most important thing in the world. So when Futaro showed up, she feared that it will only cause a rift in their unity as sisters. But by seeing Futaro sacrifice everything, even his own grades, to help her sister succeed, this was the one selfless act that made Nino slowly fall in love with Futaro. And ladies and gentlemen, this is where we get Prime Nino Nakano, short-haired Nino, LeBron Nino, the Michael Jordan of Ninos. What? Call her what you wanna call her, because in one season, which was season 2, Nino Nakano completely dominated. In one season, Miku fans halted, Itsuki fans cried out in pain, and Yotsuba fans drowned in their own fear. And of course, like always, there are no Ichika fans, they are only a myth. In 4 measly episodes, Nino somehow became best girl after being deemed as the worst character in the show. Now, up until this point, the whole anime was following the same old romance formula that we have seen a countless different times. Vague feelings followed with a 100 chapters of hidden emotions and misunderstandings. But Nino Nakano, she was different. In like 4 episodes, the entire balance just shifted, like the Avatar. In episode 7, which was her motorcycle confession, we literally see her lose a war against her own feelings. Anime has conditioned us for decades to expect the same old format again and again. Girl says what she wants to say, guy doesn't hear it, misunderstandings happen, and everybody suffers for 100 chapters. This has been the unwritten rule for centuries. Sometimes you don't even get a real confession until the very end of the series, which we will talk about later, because I'm really mad about that one. At the end, Nino looked at this cliche and just shoved it down the throat and just exploded everywhere around it. Because right after Futaro said he didn't hear her, Nino immediately goes, "No, listen carefully. I'm gonna tell you only once. I love you." And the internet just exploded. And this might be the turning point to when many fans shifted to being Nino fans. I can't say it was a tough day for them, but it was a good day for me. And you can't even be mad about it. Sometimes you just gotta put some respect on it. Shout out to Nino, man. Even if you hate Nino or supported another girl, just seeing Nino do something, you'll be like, hell yeah. When I first watched this scene, I was genuinely just mind blown, because for the first time ever, a girl actually says what she wanna say. And even after this moment, Nino doesn't stop. She flirted with him openly, pursued him directly, and forced the romance to take one giant big step forward. I don't normally get attached to these aggressive heroines in anime. I usually think they're not needed. They're usually the third girl on down the list. But there was something different about Nino, and that just goes to show how different she is as a character. But even knowing this, why didn't Nino win? Jollibee, why didn't she win? Is there a fly? Jollibee's getting flied. Nino versus Yotsuba. If we analyze their weapons, armor, and skills, who would win at that battle? Who had the better chemistry? For many fans, Nino had the better chemistry overall. Everything that was going for Yotsuba was paid off and was told to us retrospectively. Meanwhile, Nino's growth came from everything we saw her do. Nino had better romantic chemistry, but Yotsuba had better life chemistry with Futaro. Every time Futaro was with Yotsuba, it felt like he actually enjoying himself. Unlike with Nino when he was playing the hero every time. So unfortunately, or fortunately, Yotsuba has way more chemistry than Nino. Who changed Futaro more? Yotsuba was by far the person who changed Futaro the most, for Kyoto and everything afterwards, and with his personal life. On the other hand, Nino forced Futaro to confront romance directly, making him see that these feelings are not something people should just ignore. But with that said, I say Yotsuba still wins in this regards. So right now, Yotsuba is 2 for 2. Nino may have the better chemistry with Futaro, but how much is that just because of Nino alone? Yotsuba and Futaro connected more on a deeper level. Every major turning point leads back to her, which is honestly terrifying as a Nino fan. Even though I'm satisfied with the ending, I still think Nino should have won. So maybe I should be mad at myself. Now, the next one, we are entering dangerous territory. Possibly the most iconic argument between two girls in one show ever. The great old Rem Rem versus Emilia debate, the waifu wars of 2016. 2016 was a terrifying year to have internet access, and thankfully I was only 9 years old looking at porn. Mind you, I was an Emilia guy when I first watched the show, but after rewatching, a month ago, I could understand why people, say Rem was the best girl and Rem should have won. But before we get into that, we first need to understand why Subaru chose Emilia. Subaru chose Emilia because she was the first person to show him kindness by saving him from the thugs in the alley. She showed him kindness and she was the first person to talk to him and open up. Him saving Emilia was his primary motivation throughout the course of the first season. She was the center of it all. She was Subaru's purpose. And this is kind of where the first girl syndrome takes into effect, the phenomenon of, where the first girl is always gonna win, since she was the first person, for the main character to see in the beginning. And because Subaru met Emilia first, that makes Emilia the de facto winner in this romance. But what if the author created a girl who in the first season just outshadows the main girl by 1 billion points? Why is there points? Who carried the entire season when the main heroine was away? Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Rem. Rem spent her entire life drawing in her own sorrow. Her sister Rem was the prodigy, the genius, the chosen one. Meanwhile, Rem grew up feeling like she was the backup character in her own family. But that all changed when Rem loses her horn protecting Rem, deepening her guilt for being born and being useless, always blaming herself for her sister being a shell of her former self. Her hatred towards Subaru was because of his distrustfulness of outsiders, especially because Subaru had the witch's scent. But that all changed when Rem saw the real Subaru. A Reddit thread actually explained it well. Subaru thought he had to do everything perfectly to gain Rem's trust. But he got Rem's trust by doing the exact opposite of what he thinks will earn him trust. This one moment made Rem trust Subaru even more. Subaru was the first person to see her as an individual and not just her sister's inferior twin. His words gave her the strength to keep on moving, the strength to live for herself. And that's exactly why Rem loved Subaru. And this is where we get to the most infamous episode of the show, the de facto turning point that made everyone go from Emilia fans to Rem fans. Episode 18, From Zero. Arc 3 is by far Subaru at its lowest point. Every episode, every death felt like one giant step back from the other. It felt like Subaru could do nothing to overcome it, and that's where he decided to run away. At this point, he doesn't want to win anymore. He just wants to run away. And honestly, fair enough. We all seen Subaru was going through, and to be fair to him, anyone would have given up. So Subaru right there offers Rem the opportunity to just leave their problems and run away, which Rem refuses to. Even with her fantasizing her life with him, she still refuses because she knew Subaru, the man who she fell for, would never do such a thing. She realized that even if they escape, it would not solve the problem that Subaru is currently going through, which was self-hatred. So instead of running away, she chose to uplift Subaru and help him understand that he is a good person by listing everything good about him, every insecurity, every weakness he has. She understood it all and she loved him for it, which what leads us to the most iconic scene in Re:Zero, the Rem I love Emilia scene. The first instant of the blue-haired curse happening in full effect in anime. When Subaru said I love Emilia, you could literally hear all the souls of everybody leaving their bodies. Listen, I've been rejected before and I got slapped for it, but that's the story for another day. So if my crush told me, oh, let's run away, I would be like, let's go, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? But if I refuse and then she says, oh, I love Emilia, oh man, I would definitely crash out. I would just start pampering her, you know what I'm saying? But respectfully. And again, the point is Rem refusing it for Subaru's sake, which is just sad honestly because we know Rem loves Subaru. And even before that, Rem's action time and time again just puts her on a whole nother tier above the main heroine. Every day it was Rem giving her life to Subaru, and we were conditioned to watch that again and again. Again, the goal was saving Emilia, but maybe fall in love with a blue-haired maid girl along the way, who knows. But for the second time, if we analyze their weapons, armor, and skills, who would win in a death battle between Rem Rem and Emilia. Who had the better chemistry? In some cases, it felt like Subaru was a whole different character every time he talks with both girls. I don't know why, and many fans thought so as well, but the way Subaru talks to Rem just feels different to how Subaru talks to Emilia. With Rem, it feels like she was talking to the real Subaru, but with Emilia, it always feels like Subaru is trying to act like someone he's not. Again, this doesn't really mean one is better than the other, it's just a thing that most fans caught on. Who changed Subaru more? Well, Emilia is Subaru's primary romantic motivation. Rem is actually the person who changed Subaru for the better. For the entire season, Rem has played the crucial emotional support that allowed Subaru to grow, especially in those early arcs. And because of that one episode, she single-handedly turned Subaru from a broken man into someone who strives to be a hero. No, listen, for me, after watching season 2, I am an Emilia guy. But I cannot deny that seeing Rem and, Subaru interact with each other don't, make me feel some sort of way. Emilia might be Subaru's first option, but how much is that because, Subaru met her first? Again, this video isn't, about Emilia bad, Rem good, poo poo pee pee. That is not the whole point of this video. It's crazy that some fans are still obsessed with this argument, even though Rem hasn't moved a muscle for seasons. In fact, she hasn't even moved since season 2, episode 1. And finally, the last anime that got it wrong, Nisekoi. Listen, Nisekoi was my pride and joy back in the days. I actually kind of grew up with Nisekoi. I watched it back in 2019 when I was like in grade 6. I read the manga in the first semester of middle school, pre-COVID and kind of before COVID and after COVID, something like that. And then I finished the manga again the last semester of high school. And to this day, there's still no season 3. It's been like 11 years. Please give it, please give us season 3, or I will burn down. No, I can't say that. Cut it out. Cut that out. And to this day, I still do not understand why the author did that to the best girl in this series. If you have finished the manga, you know that Raku eventually chooses Chitoge at the very end. And again, I am not bad with this ending. Chitoge was in the front cover of every Nisekoi promotion page. She is the prime example of a cover girl winning every time. So that's why I'm not mad, Kosaki was, didn't win. It was perfectly okay. I'm fine. But I'm mad. I'm actually mad. Jollibee, I'm mad at you. Especially him. I'm not mad that Kosaki didn't win. I'm mad that Kosaki didn't get, an arc for her to grow and express herself to Raku. Every single girl, I feel like, had an arc where they just come into terms with their feelings towards Raku. And right now, I feel like I'm going on a huge tangent, talking about, the Nisekoi ending more than Kosaki versus, Chitoge. But trust me, this is important. I need to get this off my chest because this is building up for years. The girl we're following for the entire series finally made her move at the final chapter of the arc, when everybody and their mamas, even the readers, have already moved on to the main heroine. She wasn't even given an arc to actually grow and confess. She confessed, but then 5 pages later, Chitoge and Raku got together. And again, I'm mad at it, kinda mad, but the way the author did her was just dirty. Okay, it was dirty. From the very beginning, Chitoge and Raku's relationship was complicated. They hated each other, yet they have to pretend to be lovers to prevent an all-out war, and every arc and situation just pushed them much closer together. Every argument became more genuine, and every fake thing they did become more and more real. Raku chose Chitoge because he felt like he could be real with her than anyone else. With the key and the love locket, he dreamt of a perfect girl, a perfect romance. But being around Chitoge, he experienced a true romance even though it started as a fake one. So I love that Chitoge and Raku had their moment. It was perfect, just like Kosaki. And if you haven't watched or read Nisekoi, I highly recommend you to do so. The anime had season 1 to season 2, and somehow it's been 11 years, there's no season 3, even though it was a very popular, Shonen Jump romance rom-com. What happened? Please give me more. From the very beginning, Kosaki and Raku were two peas in a pod. They were more alike than they originally thought. Each person had an ideal version of them in their heads. Raku looked at Kosaki and could not talk to her. Meanwhile, Kosaki looked at him and could not talk to him. Both of them were madly in love with each other, and still somehow, someway, they stayed like this for 99% of the show. But again, circumstances change. Every challenge thrown at Raku, it's up to her and Raku to do something to tell the other they love them. We wouldn't really know what would have happened if Chitoge and Raku didn't fake date. It doesn't really guarantee Kosaki and Raku would end up together for real. But again, just speaking retrospectively, it's just sad. It's just sad that, they didn't get to express their love life like way earlier out in the show. The universe completely hated Kosaki. Kosaki was about to confess. Boom, a stray baseball hit the classroom. Kosaki was about to confess. Boom, Raku falls asleep. The Romeo and Juliet play, the god of Athena cursed Kosaki's ankle. Every single time the story gives Kosaki momentum, every single time we think like Kosaki was about to take, the first step, something that is not in her control happens. Listen, I know I sound like a complete madman complaining about a series that ended like, a couple of years ago, but I was really in love with Kosaki as a character. I think her and Raku were a lot alike in many ways. But her whole story in Nisekoi was just one giant big step and then one giant big step backwards. You thought Frieren fumbled? No, Kosaki was the definition of a missed opportunity. The gods of romance threw everything at her to make sure she doesn't end up with Raku. And that is why the internet loves Kosaki more than Chitoge, because she was a walking what if. But what do you guys think? Do you think the best girl really won here? Comment it down in the comments below. And listen, sometimes the best girl is different from the right girl. Nino, Ram, Kosaki may have been the best girl in the series, but that doesn't mean they were the right choice for the protagonist and for the story. Again, subscribe, like, support small creators like me. I love you guys. Real one, say it back.